Hey everybody, my name is Marco Antonio, and thank you for joining on my YouTube channel, Marco Antonio Strategizes. Today, what I want to talk to you about is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever seen in the restaurant industry. I'm a first-hand restaurant owner and operator, and I am a marketing strategist, and I have a super large passion for marketing, but it's been so common that I needed to make a video about this that all of my restaurant colleagues, owners and operators and managers, I've seen that they truly don't know their food cost. And it's like, how can you sell an item and not know what that item truly cost? And it sounds so simple, but it needs to be talked about. I work consulting a couple of restaurants around the country, and with the success that I've had from growing our family business from $100,000 a year to going out of business to coming back from the dead after a year and a half of not being in business at all or existing, I grew us to over $1 million a year. So I have to say that one of the biggest key things I'm going to go back and say is knowing what our food cost is, knowing what we're getting on return, knowing what is going on with the health of operations of our business. So I'll just go ahead and speak about it from my personal experience and perspective, and please feel free to interpret it and how it best applies to you and your industry. As a restaurant owner and operator, one of our biggest expenses is going to be our protein, meat, beef, chicken, pork, all types of cuts. Even the fat, like when you're cutting down and cleaning up beef and getting, some people like to clean it up and get rid of the fatty parts, some of the fatty tissue off the end of the beef. But keep in mind, as an owner and operator, when you receive that shipment of beef, you paid for that shipment by the pound. So you have to calculate that cost, that waste into your cost. If you have 80 pounds of beef and you weigh out and you shave down and you've seen that you discarded, you know 6 pounds of beef fat, are you going to repurpose it in a soup? How are you going to repurpose this in one way or another? Or are you going to completely discard it? Just to keep the number simple, that 80 pounds of beef, you probably paid $4 a pound for those 80 pounds of beef. So let me bust out the good old trusted calculator. 80 pounds of beef times $4 is $320 plus tax. We live in the good old state of California, so right now sales tax is going to be times 0.0925. And so with sales tax, that's $29.60 in sales tax. So we're going to be doing 320 plus, let's just call it $30. $350 you paid for those 80 pounds of beef. So at this time, 350 divided by 80 pounds, your beef cost with sales tax was $4.37. 437 and a half. Let's call it 438. So it's $4.38 if you were to really yield the whole 80 pounds. But we're not. We got rid of 6 pounds of beef fat. So we're gonna do 74 pounds divided by 350. I'm sorry, guys, I messed up. 350 divided by 74 pounds. Now that pound of beef is $4.72 or 473. What's really important is all these little things add up, and we're talking 72 cents. Now, if you're a restaurant and you're going through 100 pounds of beef in 1 month, that's 72 cents times 100 is $72. But in 1 year, times 12 months, that's $864 unaccounted for. So knowing the true cost, the hidden cost, the sales tax, the discarded weight that you didn't account for, all of these are very large factors for what you're going to be accounting for. That you thought you were going to yield 80 pounds worth of product, you're now yielding 76 pounds worth of product. Now you have less product at a higher cost. Now, these are the big crucial things that a lot of restaurant owners and operators need to start with to really get their cost of the true cost of their product. And at that point, we can start determining if we're going to be doing 8 ounce portions, 4 ounce portions. Now you have a closer idea of what the true cost of that product is costing you. Here's a great example. I own a Mexican restaurant. We sell tons of tacos all the time. So at 476 of that product of what's left over and what we just calculated together, if I were to get 8 tacos out of that product, out of that 1 pound of meat, I'm looking at around 60 cents per taco worth of protein on that taco. Now we have the added tortilla cost, and we have to do, are we putting a half ounce worth of salsa? I have to take into account the tomato cost, the chilies cost, vinegar if we're using vinegar in our recipe, salt. I buy onions in a 50-pound increment, and I know that we are putting on average at its peak 5 grams of onion on each taco. Now, why would I do something so minuscule? I'm not getting anything for free. In one way or another, when you're putting out a product, someone is paying for it. Either your customer is going to be paying for it, or we as business owners and operators are going to be paying for it. That 5 grams wasn't free. That 1.5 grams that I put on a taco for worth of cilantro's volume is. So every little bit cost you or cost someone money, but no one got it for free. So on average, I'm getting 8 tacos out of 1 pound of beef. That's around 60 cents per pound of beef. Then we're going to be looking at the gram and a half of cilantro, and we're looking at a half estimation, a little bit under of a half ounce of salsa. So then we're looking at the 5 grams of onions. These are basic tacos, nothing big, nothing crazy, nothing special. So now at this point, with all those items included, we also have to take into account our packaging. So at that point, these singular tacos, if it's going to be a one taco per order, are we doing 3 tacos per order? Sometimes we have 30 tacos orders at a time, 50 tacos at a time. Obviously, with more volume, it'll yield you more um, value out of the packaging as much as you can fit in that single item of takeout containers for packaging. That singular taco at this point right now, if without taking the packaging into account, we went from 60 cents protein cost. We are probably sitting comfortably around, for that beef taco, around 75 cents um, for the cost of that taco. At that point, obviously, there's so many factors, and people say, do you take labor into consideration? Yes, you should take labor into consideration. The labor, for me, the way that I look at it, it's a variable. Do I have an employee? I've seen employees that can push out 200 tacos in an hour. I have employees that can push out 100 tacos in 10 minutes. So the return that I'm seeing is drastically different. Yes, the employee that puts out 100 tacos in 10 minutes is going to be paid substantially more and healthily, because I want to retain that employee because they're generating me more revenue than the employee that makes 100, 200 tacos in an hour. I don't want to calculate labor into this factor at this time, and no, I'm not trying to sound foolish. Obviously, labor is an expense, but I really want to get nailed down the product costs. We're gonna work into labor on another video. But knowing these base points, this is where you can healthily say, hey, this is how much now I need to know that I got make, because I have, X amount in expenses a month. My rent is steady. The average price for electricity and gas is steady. I know what my average labor cost per month is. On average, it's steady. I said I wasn't going to factor that, but excuse me, I am. And there's so many other small variables that are going into consideration. Napkins, straws. We don't really necessarily charge the customer directly for it. You have to incorporate those items into your food costs. If not, you're just going to start confusing your customers. And if you start charging for every single little thing like napkins and straws, they're going to feel gypped and they're probably going to go elsewhere. Me personally, at a 75-cent cost of an item, even though I still want to make it attractive, I'm going to try to do my best to multiply that by 5. That's a $3.75 taco. To be frankly honest, we move so many tacos, I take volume into consideration. We're selling these tacos at $2.95. So let's see what we're looking at. We're going to do 0.75 divided by. So I multiplied it by 0.25. So 0.75 times 2.5. So if I'm doing my math correctly, I'm doing 0.75 times 3.95. I land at 296. So almost 4 times of what it cost. I multiplied it by 4 to get my end sale price of what I'm going to sell it to the customer at. That's where I believe a lot of my restaurant owners, colleagues, and operators, we are all making really big mistakes. We need to know what our food cost is down to the T. If you have to go get a scale that weighs down to the half gram, I mean, I have restaurant owners and colleagues who are using Madagascar vanilla beans in some recipes. Have you ever bought have you ever bought 4 ounces worth of Madagascar vanilla beans? Like, you know, Madagascar vanilla beans are on par with Colombian snow. Like, it's expensive. You're gonna have to bust out that little scale and borrow it from your friend at the dispensary or whatever you gotta do, but you gotta weigh out that cilantro, those onions. You really need to get down to the nitty gritty of what all your items are costing. The last thing that I want to point out before I hop off this video, and I'll be jumping on again soon, is every single night when you are in a service based business like with the restaurant industry and you charge sales tax, that sales tax is not your money. Please don't ever account for it as if it was your own when that money hits your account. One really big habit that I like to practice is at the end of every evening, as soon as I see what my sales report is, I see what the sales tax collected is, I created an entirely separate checking account just for sales tax. And I see if I generated $207.86 for sales tax that day, I am taking, to be safe, $220. And I'm going to take that money that night, transfer it from my checking account into my sales tax checking account. And I know every single day I'm setting aside the government's money. The government does not play when it comes to getting their money. Please, my restaurant people and all my other business owners, don't ever account for it. At the end of a quarter, you might owe the government in sales tax. Well, here in California, we owe a lot all the time. You might owe them 15,000 on a quarter, 20,000 on a quarter. I've seen restaurant operators that own $100,000 in a quarter. January, February, March, like that kind of breakdown. And they get shocked when they have to write these big checks, but that money was never yours. Take your pricing into account when you're building out your menu from the bottom and pricing everything out. Take in consideration that sales tax money never belonged to you. Don't look at that money when it hits your account. It was never yours. And you're going to be saving yourself a lot of heartache and pain when you start writing that check to let go of that money. It shouldn't hurt. Factor what you are charging for your menu price items and work off of that. And I promise you, you will save yourself a world of heartache. I'm here for you. Please drop a like on this video, subscribe to my channel, join my free school group. It's in the description. And I'm here for you, all my restaurant owners and operators and marketing strategists. Until next time, have a good one.